Let's talk about this brilliant book, Go Gently, that I've got here, which is gorgeous, and there's lots of lovely interviews in there and practical tips and recipes and beautiful photography, all obviously based around your environmental activism. What pulled you to that route as well?
Yeah, I guess without knowing it, my personality, even from like being a kid at school, I was always the kid who loved to take part in the bake sales and the showing up, the kind of dressing, putting your pajamas on for comic relief, or, you know, all those extra things I love to do. I think I love to like physically show up rather than just kind of think or talk about it. Like I quite liked that. And I feel like acting is a bit like that. You have to kind of step up to it or not. So I had that nature in me to like physically show up, and which I guess has layers of, again, storytelling through kind of compassion of hearing other people's story and amplifying that message. But in terms of environmental advocacy work, you know, like I mentioned, I've always loved the seaside and like coastal environments. And I already was beginning to see in my teenage years how much more plastic pollution was ending up on our coastlines. And I was just confused why this was there. Was it people literally dropping it on the beach? Was it coming in through the kind of tide? And I just was curious as to understand like more about essentially where our rubbish goes and what can we do to change our habits, or also what could we do on like a larger scale of like challenge brands or supermarkets or government. So that led me to then start working with Greenpeace, and I went on a ship with them only for a couple of days. They were doing like a 2-month trip down the Atlantic coast of America, and I just went on a couple of days. But on that trip, trawled for microplastics. So it's literally like, you know, putting a fishing net down and seeing what plastics you come up with. And, you know, not one day out of their 2-month trip did they not bring up a type of plastic. And they were just, you know, measuring one small, tiny part of a huge ocean. So that really brought the kind of often far away statistics to like I was seeing that in front of my eyes. And all the campaigners on that ship were just so passionate, and they just were so hopeful, and they had such amazing ideas around the solutions that existed. So it was that trip that really turned it from something I was concerned about to something I was actually actively trying to do something about in my daily kind of life.
Yeah, I mean, the plastic crisis, I think, fills most of us with utter angst and sort of despair at times. I mean, hope we're going to get onto, and it's highly important that we have hope. But let's talk about the problem first. You know, it is something that I think we all try and push to the back of our minds and not think about too much, because it is huge. And, you know, like you've said, you show up, you like to do things, and it's not only working with other charities, you set up your own initiative, Waste Watch. So tell me about this and what Waste Watch does.
Yeah, Waste Watch was born out of, it was my friend and I who started it. And essentially these feelings, you're like, I'm so overwhelmed, but I can't do anything about it. And, you know, you don't want your entire like kind of consumption of information and the way you react to just exist on social media, kind of in that echo chamber of something, and you want to actually meet up with people. So we started a local kind of meetup group that was like a physical group that started like on my living room floor and then developed kind of to become bigger. But essentially we curated panels on different subjects. So it could be something like what ends up in our waterways through, you know, what we flush down the toilet to our laundry machines to our kitchen sinks, and like the micro kind of toxins that can end up in that water. So that was like a whole panel just on that.
Wow.
Or a whole panel on, you know, food waste and composting, or so different things like that, basically, that we brought in specialists, had a dialogue, and then maybe just left it open to the audience in our group. And then our idea at the end of each meeting, we'd kind of like all would commit to, you know, 1 or 2 actions that we were going to try and do in our lives based on what we had learnt at that event.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's such a brilliant way of doing it, because again, like, your storytelling is threaded throughout that you're sat sort of communicating with other people that share an interest with you, but it doesn't stop there. There's the practical bit afterwards. And what I'm really interested in is, you know, through that process of you all discussing these subjects and learning from each other or statistics, wherever you've got your information from, you then go off and try. And I think there's this expectation we have of ourselves that it then has to be perfect, that we have to be nailing it, and we are as environmentally friendly as possible, which sort of dead ends the process instantly. We feel sort of overwhelmed, like I can't make all those changes. And we talked to the guys from Earthrise about this, a similar subject of giving it a try, making small incremental changes rather than you need to just change your whole life overnight and become this perfect green human, which is a big ask for anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I really, say that in the introduction of my book, that it's kind of a celebration of imperfect and in-process action. And I think we have been so... I think there's many things. There's like what we've seen as stereotypical, maybe sort of ideas of people. And we have to, like, if we're not that perfect activism or the person who is with the microphone at the front of the stage, there's so many other roles that you don't maybe need to use your voice loudly, but you could be using a skill or something. There's so many different ways to become part of the movement that fits people's identities, personalities, what they have access to, everything. So, and I think if we do get too caught up on doing everything perfectly, and if we start something now, we can never go back on that. It essentially brings in ego to the dialogue, which is just not needed, and it's distracting, and it can cause people to feel also quite scared about giving it a go, because their fear is that they're not going to be worth it, or they're not enough in that space. And I think that's like the most damaging thing that you can present in a movement, because you need everyone to show up.
Yeah.